Thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Paige Morris, and I'm the North American Student Representative for the Glass Art Society. And before we get the program started, we have a few logistics to cover and online community practices to review. We'll be recording today's program and posting it on our YouTube channel. So while we hope you will keep your cameras on, only do so if you're comfortable. We also ask that you keep yourself on mute unless you are speaking. If you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear them. And because we know people engage in different ways, you're welcome to grab the microphone and unmute yourself to speak. I think there's also a raise hand function on Google Meets at the bottom. It has a little hand shape. Yep. Or if it's more comfortable, you can just use the chat box. Ibram and I will be moderating that, so we'll make sure that your questions get answered. Closing extra tabs on your device can help avoid video delays or glitches, so now would be a good time to go ahead and close any you don't need. As our online community practices go, we ask that everyone be respectful, speak from their own experience, and challenge yourself not to make assumptions. Instead, ask questions and go deeper. We also want to acknowledge that some of us are currently on Indigenous lands, and all across the world, people are dealing with issues of colonialism. For those of you who haven't been to a GAS student meetup program before, they are monthly virtual meetings meant to create a space for students from around the world to discuss glass materials and processes, view lectures and demos, attend virtual studio tours, meet leaders in the glass community, and more. This program is run by myself and Ibram, our international student representative. So with that being said, let's get our program started today. Today, we're going to be discussing residencies, which is a conversation I think many of us are eager to start. So I'm going to keep the introduction super brief. But for our panel, if you feel like there's something important for you to share about yourself, please give yourself a little intro too. So joining us is Ben Wright, Pilchuck Glass School's Artistic Director, Kim Thomas and Celeste Wilson, two of Pilchuck's most recent emerging artists in residence, and Schenck, who participated in the EAiR program in 2018, as well as Jenny Crescuillo, who participated in 2016. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Ben, who will give us some insight on the program itself.
Yeah, I've got a little thing here I'm going to try and present, but if not, I'll just roll with the information. See if we can do this. Are you all seeing this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the EAiR Residency was established in 1990 by then Artistic Director Pike Powers. Serves 6 to 10 emerging artists per year. We've gradually been growing this cohort a little bit. It now comes with a $2,000 stipend and full travel reimbursement. There is a cap on that, but it usually covers everybody's travel. The residency is 2 months in length from early October to Thanksgiving, and are pretty much the only participants on campus. So you really have run of the campus. The 6 artists have access to all of the Pilchuck studios. Generally speaking, there's no hot glass access. We bring up visiting curators, both regional, national, and international folks to do studio visits, and have had some technical demos and material specialists come up as well. There is a part-time residency coordinator that supports this residency, but we have limited technical support on campus at that point. So some glass making experience is required. And the jury is pretty clearly looking for artists that are at sort of inflection points, career transition points. The jurors this year are Samantha DiTio, who is a curator at the Museum of Art and Design. I believe her most recent show was this stunning exhibition by Beth Littman that was up sort of throughout the pandemic. Really amazing show. Rob Lewis, who teaches out at Alberta College of Art now. I think they dropped the design, Alberta College of Art, and was previously taught at Toyama. And I always like to have a super fresh experience on the jury. Kim, as was mentioned, was one of last year's emerging artists in residence and will be a juror for this next cohort. So here's a picture of last year's crew, and I just really wanted to give a snapshot of what each of they were working on, although it's just, you know, sort of a one slice of how people might approach this residency. Kim was working primarily in the Flame Studio, which is accessible to this residency, was making many, many small components that were then made into these amazing piles of detritus. So you can see the individual components and then working on different formats to present those. Amy Wang had a very involved print process and was primarily down in our imaging lab, making these composite prints from glass plates that were resulting in these stunning images. Celeste Wilson, you know, in some ways this is a perfect group to sort of illustrate how many different approaches to, one might take to this residency. Celeste was largely working with reductive processes in the cold shop. So although she had quite a few projects going, there's some images here of sort of found pressed glass or imitation cut glass that she was then taking into the studio and eroding pieces of its patterning. Emily Endo was largely focused on kiln casting and was making some amazing molds, and then also really getting some amazing color gradations in the casting process, and was working a lot on that, doing a lot of test pieces, and then also these stunning seahorses. May Cat has more of a performative practice, but was making these glass awards, a series of fused pieces, so using the kilns in a very different way. And Montserrat Duran Montadas combines fiber and fabrics and glass, was also very active in the Flame Studio, primarily using soft glass and making these components, which were then sort of compiled into larger pieces. She also was immediately intrigued with the neon process, which we've been able to offer a little bit of access to lately, and are looking to expand that access for this residency as well. I would say almost all of the residents in this last group, in one way or another, started playing with some neon. And I just wanted to go through really quickly before we get to the fun stuff. If you're interested in this, where you can find more information and where you can apply. If you go to our website, there's a programs tab at the top. You can see as you drop down, residencies is the second tab. This emerging artist in residence is the first of several residencies. I encourage you to check them all out. They all have different application deadlines throughout the year. And when you click on that, you can apply directly from the website. It's a free application. I encourage you to put an application in. There is also more information on our jurors and on the group of artists that I just showed you if you're interested in delving deeper into that. Okay, so I just wanted to give a really quick introduction to what it is we're talking about, and then I'll turn it over to the folks who actually have experienced.
Great, thanks so much, Ben.
Yeah.
I was thinking to really sort of get this conversation going, if and anyone on the panel who would want to jump in to start, but if you could just maybe talk about what it was that drew you to apply to the residency at Pilchuck, and maybe what you did accomplish or what you were hoping to accomplish that. Because I know that this residency is really meant, as Ben said, for individuals who are in a transition in their career. So if there was a specific transition that you felt like you were personally going through at this time of applying, if you're willing to share that, that would also be great. Does anyone want to start? I can pick someone too.
H looks like ready for it.
Yeah.
Or I can go. Or H or I can go. Yeah, I'm always like, should I volunteer? No, I'll let somebody else talk. But yeah, so my name's H, and my practice mostly deals with repurposing materials, and I'm really interested in how different methodologies kind of overlap and how materials can be manipulated in different processes. So I actually came to Pilchuck with a print background. I don't identify as a glass artist. I'm just kind of a general artist that uses lots of different materials. And so when I applied for the residency, I had already been, I had worked for Pilchuck for a few summers. So even though I didn't have a glass education, Pilchuck has always been a great place for those of us who are fresh. And when I applied, I was actually planning on making a big move from Texas to Chicago. So I had lost my studio, and I didn't really know what my life was gonna be like in Chicago. And so this was kind of like a really great opportunity for me to jumpstart what was happening. And it's kind of funny, people talk about residencies, about, having a really strong proposal. And then once you get there or whatever, I had all these plans to like work in the print shop and make a book and do all this stuff. But what ended up happening was I did a whole bunch of kiln forming, and I was lucky because Allie Birch and Soo-Yun Kim were there with me, and they helped me write programs because I'd never done that before. But then I also helped out Liesl Schubel and Victoria Amadizadeh in the print shop. And so I was able to kind of lend some of my background to some residents, and then other residents were able to help me. And really exciting, my kiln form work was just recently shown at Urban Glass, so in New York. So the work that I did there, I'm still digesting it, from 2018, it's now 2021. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. So I can't thank Pilchuck enough for that. Hopefully, Paige, did I cover all your questions?
Yeah, I think so. It's a really sort of broad question, because I feel like sometimes when I get asked that question, like, well, why, or when I'm like even just applying for things, and it's like, why do you want this opportunity? And I feel like the first thing that comes into my mind is because I want it, because I want to go there and I want to make work.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting a little bit more insight, like further into the like why. That's really
cool. I guess I just, the duration of time was really great too. The seclusion element, like literally it was just the 6 of us plus the full-time staff. And so there was no distractions. And a lot of my practice, I'm not somebody that like goes into the cold working studio and works there for like 12 hours. Like I totally respect that methodology, but I don't have that kind of focus. I'm very like, I have to work on something for 20 minutes and then I go to something else and then I go to something else, and I bounce around a lot. And so, Pilchuck and the landscape that it's in, like I collected mushrooms while I was there. I made like spore prints. And there's just like a lot of opportunity for investigation. The glass that I used was also, I found it near the dumpster on campus. It was like this random cane that nobody knew anything about. It was dirty. I kiln formed it dirty. Yeah. there's just like, there's so many variables there to engage with and questions to ask. And I also like to be around people who are experts in things that I don't know a lot about. And so Pilchuck is like perfect for that, because everyone kind of has their niche expertise and they love sharing it. And so I knew from past experience that any resident that I was going to be paired up with would also have that same kind of attitude, you know. And so, and I've always felt in the time that I've been at Pilchuck that people do a really good job of, you know, Ben talks about the cohort thing, like really thinking about these groups and how they come together and choosing the artists based on their work and how they might relate to each other. And I don't know, I've just always really respected Pilchuck, and I knew I would have a good time if I got there. Like when I say good time, I don't mean party. I mean, like, I knew I would make a lot of thoughtful work and connections. It was a huge career move for me. And yeah, I feel very fortunate. um,
No, that's great. Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to sort of build off of that or share their experience? Jenny, I feel like you and H were maybe fighting earlier for the.
No, I was just not hitting the button right. It's like slow on the draw there, but but yeah, I agree with a lot of what H said, and you know, a lot of that holds true for me too. You know, I had been staff at Pilchuck, you know, for a long time. Like you and me, Paige, had been there together, and Ben, you know, we've all, you know, met each other initially there, I'm pretty sure. And so, you know, I knew kind of what all Pilchuck was about and how everything worked. And it was like a real big comfort zone for me too, to be there. And so that was really, you know, big part of that, like having the room to experiment and to explore and to not really feel like I knew I was going to make a lot while I was there. And that was the plan. But I also, you know, you don't really feel the pressure there to produce like finished things. Like it's okay to just make a thing and then be like, I have no idea what this is. Maybe I'll throw it away, maybe I won't. And then it's like, you know, some of those things that I maybe almost threw away when I was coming back, I'm looking at now and I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing I made while I was there, and is like totally inspiring, you know, like what I'm doing now. But in actually H, a lot of that stuff that you did, you know, that I feel like was like rolling around in my brain because I had not really, you know, seen somebody with, you know, I mean this in like a complimentary way, but like with a naive eye towards glass, which I think is a real benefit to a lot of people. To see you kind of looking at glass through that new lens was very inspiring to me, and like especially like what I'm doing now. So I appreciate that. So thank you. Like the marbles and the oozing and all that. I loved it. Love it. And but yeah, that kind of, you know, Pilchuck was a safe place for me, and I already knew a lot of the people and knew the studios, and so I was like, oh, I know I can get a lot done there. And so that was a big impetus for why I wanted to do this residency. And also, you know, like the length of time, the remote location, again, like the cohort, all that, and just knowing the kind of, you know, creative minds that are sort of drawn to that place, that I thought it would be good. And, you know, for my group, I feel like there, you know, there was like that real good curation of, you know, not just the quality of artists, which of course is going to be good, but of the specific connections between the artists was really fun to uncover, you know, while we were all there. Like, oh, you do this. Oh, that kind of relates to that. Here, I have this material that I brought that maybe you can use, and, you know, that kind of thing. But for me, you know, that transition was like I have 2 kids. And so at that time I had a young, you know, just one at the time, but he was about 4, I think 5 at that time. And so, you know, it wasn't like fresh motherhood, but just kind of like really getting back out there. Like I had already, before Pilchuck, I had done a residency at Wheaton Arts in 2014. And that was kind of like the first thing that I had really done since, you know, like first big thing, other than like Pilchuck staff, since becoming a mother. And so kind of like finding where my work was going to go from grad school into kind of more mature adulthood and kind of reestablishing those studio patterns. You know, when I was at Wheaton, I kind of just, I mean, I got a lot done there, but I sort of shook a lot of that dust off. And then the EAiR residency at Pilchuck, I feel like I was able to kind of actually do some of those experiments and ideas that I came up with, you know, while I was at Wheaton, after Wheaton, that I was like, oh, this work is going to lead to the next thing. So it helped me really kind of mature the direction that I wanted to go. And, you know, when you have that much time, that much space, that much access to materials, you know, you can't help but make leaps and bounds in your work. Whereas, you know, I'm sure it's similar with all of you guys, but like at my home studio, I really only have the capacity to make like one thing at a time. And, you know, I have pieces from like last spring that I'm still finishing, and that's perfectly reasonable amount of time because I work, you know, for other artists. I'm usually doing their work. You know, we all have our day jobs, and so just getting to really like hit the warp speed on your thought process, I think is a really huge benefit. But the kind of the why of the residency, like you were asking, Paige, I think that that is a really important thing to focus on, as, you know, just when you're going to apply for residencies, because there's a million of them. Like you could fill up your, you know, if you, all you have to do is apply for things, you could line them up, you know, for a whole year almost, I'm sure. If you had unlimited money, you don't need to have a job, all this stuff. But it's like really choosing, what do I need? Where do I need to go? Why am I going there? Like that's important for you to know for your application, but also to be successful in choosing those. You know, like, is your residency Pilchuck where you need glass experience? You may or may not have. Or do you need a residency where you're, you know, in New York City, like in a studio where you have a studio assistant that's doing most of your work? Like, I think that those are really important questions to answer. And then to put that in the application. Like we were just bantering a little bit before the meeting, and, you know, Kim said something about, you know, her mom said she doesn't make excuses, and I can't remember the other part of it, but, you know, or she doesn't ask permission and she doesn't make excuses. She just gives reasons. And so these are all like, it's not, I think a lot of the time when I would write applications before, I would think that I was sounding whiny, like, oh, I need this and I need this and I need this. And it's like, you know, the little voice in the back of my head is like, well, if I need it, why don't I just get it where I am? You know, but that's not really valid and practical. And so you have to be okay to state your needs clearly. Like, I need to come to Pilchuck because I need to escape my everyday life because I can't focus my mind enough to make progress, or something like that, for instance. Or I need to be at Wheaton for this particular size set of kilns that they have that nowhere else has. Or I need to be at Urban because I'm provided with a studio assistant and I need to use techniques that I'm not proficient in, you know, or some such and such. And that's not a knock against yourself, that you're just, you know, showing that you kind of have a clear head of what you want to get done while you're there. So I think that's an important aspect of that. All right, so I'm gonna take a little breather for now.
Thank you, Jennifer, for this really significant conversations that I asked also for Kim and to you today about my MFA studies. Thank you.
Yeah, Kim or Celeste, do you have anything you want to add to that? And then, like, for you two in particular, I'm also thinking about like what it meant, sort of like, we're not really pandemic or anything. We're still in it, but sort of like post that initial social distancing shutdown, like that sort of halt that we experienced early on in 2020, like what it maybe felt like, or was there an adjustment, like getting into this space, getting into the residency and having this freedom to just make and to really immerse yourself in your practice? Did you notice a shift there, just dealing with some, like, I don't know if a pandemic related trauma or side effects of personality? That's something I've been thinking about a lot in my practice, is that speed up and slow down thing that I feel like we're all experiencing.
Okay, I can talk. I can't see everybody's face or anything, so it's hard to know what's going on in this. But as far as, I mean, for me, the pandemic, like the height of the pandemic, wasn't so bad as a flame worker. You just do everything by yourself. You know, you don't need assistance necessarily. So I think more for me going to Pilchuck during that time. I know that Celeste had been delayed because of the pandemic, so I was kind of happy too, because I really enjoyed Celeste's company while we were there, and our group was, I just really loved everybody in the group, and we all worked really well together, and were able to not work together really well too. So that was a really big deal. But as far as being a flame worker, you know, leaving the real world and then going to Pilchuck, it didn't really make that much of a difference in terms of the pandemic. You know, it was like I kind of lived as like a solitary life in general, and you know, like a studio troll or hermit, and I just go to the studio every day and then come home and just do that day in and day out for long periods of time. So having a really great studio mate, you know, in the flame working studio at the time. I mean, I have studio mates at home too, but working with Montserrat in the studio was really nice, and working with everybody while I was there. You know, even Amy and Celeste came down to the flame working studio, and I was able to help them, or, you know, show them some things, and, you know, just help them with the project that they needed. So that was really great. But I mean, it was kind of nice to go to Pilchuck and know that you weren't going to catch coronavirus from anybody, and the solitude and just being in like a safe environment, I think was really beneficial. You know, so you don't know, like, okay, if we go off camp, or if I go out to the grocery store and do all these things, you know, like you don't know what your studio mates are doing out, you know, in real life too, where there's, I feel like, a little bit more of a risk of catching COVID. And then since we were just kind of isolated there, I wasn't really worried about it as much, and I didn't really worry about anything really while I was there. So that was really beneficial for me to work a lot. Also for me, the reason why I wanted to go to Pilchuck was I taught there once before. I was there for a week during the fall session, and I really enjoyed myself. I mean, the teaching the class was very intense, and it was a lot of work. And, you know, I don't mind that. But I just loved the atmosphere there. And, you know, knowing Ben from Urban Glass, and, you know, just having, you know, I knew a lot of people there. So it's just such a very comfortable environment, and accepting, and kind of, you know, there's like anything goes. You can do kind of whatever you want in terms of working, which I also enjoyed. And so I am transitioning in my work as far as I'm a pipe maker, which is how I make money. And it was just like not really being as stimulated by that as I was at one time, and just really wanting to move forward and make work that was really meaningful to me. And you know, pipes, you know, doing that 10 years, 11 years, it was just getting a little stale and not, and getting older, than the people who buy the pipes. So making that transition was really important. And when I started writing my proposal, I just thought about how much I wanted to move forward in my career and advance my skill, and wanting, a place where I could, feel at home and work on this passion project that I started, maybe like a year before, that I couldn't really finish because I had to make money. And so before I got to Pilchuck, I decided to put all of my stuff in storage. And home is where my car is, that I'm like right now. So I've just been traveling from different, I taught a couple of classes over the summer, and then just decided to stay wherever I am and, find a studio and work there. So Pilchuck was part of that transient lifestyle that I'm leading right now. And, my work is about storytelling and, journeyings. And so this is a really good experience for me to do, and like go from, city to city and work in different studios and work at, teach at different places and discover things about myself and my human experience. And, help me to write. I want to become a writer too. So that's part of the thing that I was doing at Pilchuck, was writing about this escape that I've been project that I've been working on, and then making another body of work that corresponds more to earthly experiences. So those were the pictures that Ben showed, or my earthly experiences, which are piles of garbage at this point in my life. But it's symbolic and representative of a lot of other, things that, we go through as humans and artists and things like that. So that was just very important for me to talk about in my proposal. And part of I don't ask for permission, I don't make excuses, and just becoming the person that I'm really supposed to be, as far as like an artist and, a human being, was part of my proposal too, which is part of my work, and like really having a human experience. And I felt that I could do that at Pilchuck, and not only just in my own work, but meeting, intellectual equals, and I'm just like, interacting with people who have the same goal as I do. So being like that, this residency was something that I really wanted. And it was this is my first residency. And the bar is set really high now. So I'm not sure if I should, like how many other do I want to apply for another residency? What if it's not as good as the experience I just had? I will, but, I had such a good time, and I just enjoyed everybody's company there. And I had my 44th birthday there too. And Ben took us down to the woods where there was they were like set the woods on fire, and it was pouring rain, and there's this group of like people just walking through the pouring rain down this trail, and seeing this like burning fire, like smoldering fire in this pouring rain. And so, just the experience is not just working in the people that you're with. Like seeing a fire in the pouring rain in the woods was like, so like, I love that kind of stuff. Like, it's just, I had such a good time. And, being with people, if you didn't know each other, technically we've only been together for 6 weeks, but I really missed everyone once I left. And I like wanted to like go to the cafeteria and talk for hours about nonsense, and like acclimating myself to the world again. Like it's a little bit difficult when you come back from that solitude and just working and being around people who are very driven and ambitious. Was like really great. Not that, my friends out here aren't driven and ambitious, but it's, we went there for a purpose, and it was to make a bunch of work and discover and, find things, and like just have a very stimulating time, and then, you know, life it's not always that stimulating, I guess, like every single day, like it was at Pilchuck. So yeah, I would say find a not like a good reason, but a reason that you are passionate about, and that will help you with your proposal. And yeah.
Yeah, I can jump right off of that too, Kim, because I think it should be a good reason, actually. Like, I have known about this residency since I graduated from undergrad in 2010, and I never applied. I think I like started applications a couple times and then just like wasn't sure. And I actually think that was really smart in the end, because like this residency is amazing. And I've done a lot of residencies. I've done the urban residency, I've done the Wheaton residency, and then I've done a bunch of non-glass residencies. And this one is the best by far. So in my opinion, and it's a privilege. It's really and truly a privilege to get to be there and get to have that access to that space and this really, really special group of people that everyone has been talking about. You know, I couldn't agree more about like the space and the access and like the type of residency that allows you to have this like all of these resources and this giant campus and just like the freedom. So yeah, if you're what I was going to say is like, be honest with yourself. And like, if you're just like sending an application in that you wrote in 48 hours at the end, and you're just like, go apply to things, like, don't apply. Because like what I mean is like, especially this residency, but I think residencies in general, like, you only get to do it once. This one, I think you probably should only do it once. And like, so like use it to your best intention. Like I remember like watching classmates of mine or people who were younger than me like go do this residency before I had ever applied, and me kind of being like, oh, I really want to do it. But I'm so glad that I waited until I was ready. I went to grad school, and only after that was I like, okay, now I actually really have a proposal that I really want to make, and I feel like ready to do it in the time in my life when I'm ready to do it. And it was like, you know, it did get delayed by a year because of the pandemic, but actually even that was like good news, because it would have been too crazy to do it in 2020. So I did it in 2021, and it was yeah, I don't know. I've applied to a lot of things personally where it's like really last minute, and I like, you know, my proposal's like half put together, and I'm just like, it'll be fine. And I would just not recommend doing that for this one. I mean, in general, but also this one in particular, because it really is so special. And so to like go with a proposal that you know about. I also like didn't experiment. Like, I hit the ground running, partially because I had a separate residency that had nothing to do with glass like the month before. And so I made all my drawings and all my plans, and I like got super ready, and then came home for a couple of weeks, and then went to Pilchuck. So I really had this like setup. I had like a pre-residency for this residency, which was like so lucky. But yeah, I knew going in like how limited the time was and how special the time was. And so I like day one, I was like, here we go. We're cold working 12 hours a day. That's what we're doing. And that's what I did for like 6 weeks straight. So yeah, and I made a ton of work, and like just so thrilled to have had that opportunity. So if I have any advice, it's like, yeah, like have a plan, and don't, you know, not like don't bother, but like yeah, I think that like what everyone is describing, if I can like distill that, it's that like, you know, it's a really special place to be, and so you only get to use it one time. So anyway.
Thank you. I'm looking at the time now, and we have like 15 minutes, so I'm gonna open it up to any of our audience members and see if they have any questions before I start asking more. You can either raise your hand or send it to the chat box.
And I will try my best to address your questions as well to our moderators or to our speakers.
In the meantime, maybe while people are sort of gathering their thoughts or the courage to ask a question, kind of going off of what Celeste was saying in regards to the application process, or taking your time and being really thoughtful about what it is that you're applying to, or what it's for in terms of your practice and your growth. Is there anything that the remainder of the panel would want to like add to that as far as like advice? I know is the EAiR deadline is next week. Is that correct? So I don't know if there's some, or is it today?
It's January 15th.
15th.
So that is Saturday. So you got a few
Great.
days.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything any of you would want to add to that. H.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Kimberly, this was my first residency too, so we're in the same boat there. But as Celeste, I mean, everybody who's here, you've already done this because you're at this talk. But I contacted Morgan Gilbreth, who had gotten the residency the year prior to me applying. And I asked her a whole bunch of questions and about what her application looked like, you know, because I wanted to make sure that mine was successful. And her, you know, her advice, which I followed, was to basically make a very clear cut, like my proposal, there was no questions for the panel on what I was proposing. Like I talked about how many prints, I talked about what size of prints, I talked about what processes I was going to use, I talked about what facilities I wanted to be in, and I was very direct and explicit about like my timeline for my 2 months there. And now, like I said, you know, once I got there, like I still did some of those things, and then I shifted, not quite Celeste's experience, but I wrote a lot, and I still did the things that I kind of proposed, but I did all these other things too. So, but I think it's really important that your proposal, like that committee wants to know that you're going to be successful. And so, you know, you don't want them walking away with like, I have no idea what this person's talking about. So just being direct would be my recommendation.
Jennifer?
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I totally agree. And so like I kind of had a little bit of like I didn't have a pre-residency, you know, or like that much time before my residency, but you know, I had done Wheaton in 2014. So I had experience, and that was 6 weeks. And so, you know, it was a similar amount of time. And you know, if you've ever been to Wheaton, it's like very, you know, isolated weirdly in that town, bubular, you know, bubble type place. And two, so it's kind of a similar mentality in a way, in some ways. And but the, you know, when I went there, I like made a calendar, I had every day planned out, you know, I drew out a big calendar on a piece of paper. I did the same thing for Pilchuck, but like for Pilchuck, I thought about what I wanted to do in the proposal, of course, but then I like, you know, I pre-made all my silicone molds and I shipped those out with my materials. I made list after list of all the things that I needed to bring. You know, I mean, you know, I brought like my own rulers and stuff. Like, you know, you want to make sure you have every single thing you need. You know what you're going to be doing to a certain extent. You know, you can't predict the future. But, and I think a big part of that in the proposal too is that the committee wants to see that you have like a realistic grasp on the timeline and that you can actually do those things that you propose. And that shows them, in my opinion, I don't know this for sure, but that you understand the process well enough to know how long it really takes and to understand your own ability. And so you're showing that by being so explicit and itemized, like what these others were saying. So I think that's another important aspect.
Great, thank you. Ben, do you wanna, I think you're next in the queue.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those. I think it's really great to go into residencies with a plan. I also think you should go into that same residency with a full openness to throw your plan out the window if something else more interesting emerges. But the point that I would like to make is that this residency and nearly every residency that I know in our field is externally juried, and those juries change every year. So be persistent as well. This may be a very abnormal cast of characters that got their first application to this residency or another residency approved. Most people apply 3-4 times. So just be persistent. If it's something you want, keep applying. Your work will keep maturing. There will be different eyes looking at your work. This is an inherently subjective field as to what is good or bad art. There's really no such thing. So I do think all of that is really great advice, but if I could give one piece of advice, it is just to be persistent and keep applying for things if it's something that you want to do.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a friend who whenever I tell her about a rejection, she just says, "Oh, it just wasn't your time yet." Like and the opportunity comes to you like when you're ready for it. But to move on, I saw Tabitha has her hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I just recently graduated with my BFA, and I did like an internship immediately after graduation, and I'm about to start another one at the Chrysler, and I want to apply for residency, so I just but how do you know when you're ready? Like, like how long do you just take the internship game and then like kind of graduate from that to like an actual residency? I just don't want to be ill prepared is my big thing, and I just like some advice on that.
I can speak to that actually. I find that just kind of be honest with yourself and fill out an application. Look at the application, fill it out. And if you're like, ooh, I actually don't know, and I'm just kind of making this up, then you're probably not ready. Like if you can fill out a whole application and know exactly what studios you want to be in and feel really good about that application, you're probably ready. And you're, like Ben was saying, it might not be the time, but like that means you like have an idea and have a proposal. That's how I would do it at least. And sometimes I fill out a full application and then I get to the end and I'm just like, still no, like this project that I thought I was excited about, it's actually not, like I'm kind of like, phoning it in or whatever. So I would also just be honest with yourself about that. The other thing I was going to say to Ben's thing is like, I've gotten rejected from a ton of residencies. Like, and it's when I was at Pilchuck, I got rejected from other residencies. I just have a folder in my email that just says rejections, and I just put them right in there. So by no means have I just like gotten all the residencies I wanted. Like, absolutely not. You apply to a ton of them, and then you get some. And I find the ones I get are the ones that I know that I have a lot of confidence about the proposal. So.
Who's in the queue? I guess Kat.
Oh, we have, sorry, not to cut Kat off. I have Kim first, then Kat.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. If there's something you wanted to add, Kim.
Well, yeah, just about the saying, I definitely made things. I had about a month. I was just in Denver working in a studio, and I definitely worked on things that I knew I wanted to put together once I got to Pilchuck. And then also I just let myself be open to letting other things happen and coming up with other ideas, because as an artist and using your intuition, and you'll have ideas that are sparked while you're there, which is another thing about knowing when you're ready, is kind of letting it happen naturally, I think, is an important part of growing as an artist. And there's just a lot of things that you want to do, and for me too, I had this project that I just really wanted to work on, and even while I thought I was going to do certain things. I knew I was going to do certain things, which I did, and then while I was there, I kind of changed gears and decided that it wasn't quite the right time to continue writing about these things that I wanted to write about, and focus more on this other project, or this additional project that is complementary to my main project. So I feel like knowing when you're ready, like sometimes you can't wait until you're ready, and you have to just push yourself to do things. And if you get rejected, then you get rejected, because we all get rejected a lot. I mean, way more, I think, than we get accepted. So don't worry about, do worry about when you're ready, but also don't worry about it. Like, you just you can't just be like, oh, I'm not ready yet, I'm not ready yet, and they're like, I'm waiting to be ready. You have to maybe force yourself to be ready for certain things in some cases.
Yeah, I saw H just dropped in the chat. Practice makes progress, so that's, I think, a really good motto. Kat, we have your hand raised in the queue.
Hi everyone, I'm Kat Kozlowskis. I had specific questions about access as far as the 3D printing lab, and then Benjamin had mentioned access to the neon lab as well. First, could you answer those questions?
Yeah, I can feel both of those. The bot lab is pretty much available to this residency without any limitations. The neon is kind of a special situation because we don't have anybody on staff to bombard and process neon tubes that are made during the residency. So we tend to discourage an application that would solely depend on access to the neon, unless the applicant had experience doing that process and we could check them out. That being said, our studio manager is quite proficient and has been very generous with his time. If people want to experiment with the process or have a particular project, small project that they want to, as part of their proposal, want to pursue, we've been working really hard to open up the rest of the studios to this residency. So it's not out of the question. I would mildly discourage a proposal that was, I want to come and make a bunch of neon tubes that I need to get processed for me, because that's a little bit out of the scope of the support that we have.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that perfectly answers my question.
And
Thank you.
I would just say, back to Tabitha's question, just really quickly, the only thing that is certain in this whole game is if you do not apply, you will not get an opportunity. I can guarantee you that nobody's going to headhunt anybody for a residency. So, and honestly, I think that a reasonable success rate early in your career is getting 1 out of every 10 or so applications that you apply for. So if you do the math and you want 3 or 4 residencies, shows, etc. a year, then you should be applying for 30 or 40 things. And as in my experience, as your career goes along, that ratio doesn't really change that much. You just start applying for different things that are even more competitive. And, you're applying, people that I talk to who make a career out of applying for public art projects, they're shooting about the same percentage, if that. So just something to keep in mind. You do have to have a very healthy relationship with rejection, i.e. not, really not dwell on it, because that's 9 rejections for every success. So you really need to make the most out of your opportunities. That's not to be discouraging. That's to be encouraging of investing. It's a huge part of your career as an artist is just applications,
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Ibram.
I do have also a question for Ben. Well, what are your selection criteria, when you evaluate an application? As you know, there are a lot of great artists everywhere in the world who associate themselves with glass, but who has also language barrier, or the artist who requires a valid visa to be able to travel to the States. So do you have also in this terms of things to the artists in case they're accepted to EAiR program?
In terms of the international question, we have had a ton of international participants. We have 3 international participants from that same cohort with Celeste who have still yet to partake in their residency. We've got our fingers crossed for this year. They'll join the new residents that are picked by the jury. That's just because of COVID restrictions and just difficulty getting visas. So we work hard with that. Criteria are, I think everybody has been sort of spot on in their advice about applications. It's really about your proposal the excellence of your work, the connection between your work and your proposal and its viability for what our residency is. I think maybe that's the one piece of puzzle that sometimes people don't pay enough attention to. Like, is this something that Pilchuck is it an experience that Pilchuck's really going to be able to provide, because we try hard for that. So those are the things that the jury is looking at. Primarily, the impact it's going to have where you are in your career, and is this an experience that's going to kind of launch you forward. That being said, each juror, I mean, the reason we have external jurors is because they interpret those things quite differently, you know. So I really focus as the person who chooses the jurors and trying to have a representative sort of selection from the field, i.e. both artists and curators and teachers and, you know, just people who look at work really differently and with different priorities and interact with young artists in different ways. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it was a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I think that's all the time we have. I really wish we had like endless time to have this conversation, because we have such great minds here today. Sorry, Ben, I just saw your hand went up. Did you have one last thing you want to add?
Ben has a question, I guess.
I want to say January 15th is the deadline for this application. Please get your applications in. And just sort of shameless plug, we have a lot of new paid staff positions, new fellowship program, lots of other opportunities for emerging artists that are new this year. The deadline for those is February 1st, and there's information for all of that on our website. So please check it out.
Great. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone on our panel for joining us today. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone in the audience for attending. If you'd like to watch or listen to this program again, the recording will be available within the next few weeks, and you'll be able to find it on our website and YouTube channel. Special thank you to all of our donors. GAS programs, services, and benefits would not be possible without contributions from people like you. While we continue to work on our programming, we ask that you, the students, email us at studentrep@glassart.org with any suggestions on what content you'd like from the GAS student meetups. For our next meetup, we'll be joined by members of GEEKS, the Glass Education Exchange, which is an online platform that serves the immediate and future needs of those interested in glass education and exchange through programming, resource sharing, and communication. In the meantime, follow us on Instagram or join our Facebook group, the Student Center by the Glass Art Society, for more information. Thank you. Have a good morning, day, or night.